Self-love is the new sexy, the podcast devoted to helping you overcome life's most painful and stubborn challenges so you can feel great, have more energy, and live stress-free every day. To reach your full potential, simply work with the powerful spiritual principles that are readily accessible to everyone. It's easier than you think, and on today's show, W. Mark Watts is going to show you how starting with self-love is the key to joyously and harmoniously making that happen.
Hey everybody, this is W. Mark Watts. Welcome and thank you for hanging out with me for another episode of Self-Love is the New Sexy. And today's episode is entitled, Be Willing to Speak Your Truth. Be 100% courageous in your willingness to speak your truth. Now, I'm going to go somewhere that I haven't gone so far on this particular podcast, so I understand if this one turns some people off, and that's fine. However, the number one tenet of self-love, if you're really serious about this, your individual journey with self-love, your individual understanding, and your individual willingness to love yourself, the number one tenet has to be always be willing to speak your truth. Now, I've spoken my truth by and large over the course of my life, but there have been times when I have not spoken my truth, when I have gone against myself. And now I no longer do that. And I think that many of you listening to this podcast can verify the same thing in your life. There's been many times that you've spoken your truth, but there's been some times that you haven't. And self-love is about always being willing to speak your truth, regardless of what you fear, regardless of what we think the outcome might be, someone might say, whatever might happen to us as a result of us speaking our truth. That's what self-love is all about. Being firm and confident in who you are in the moment and willing to express that. Now, why do I emphasize the beginning of this podcast? It's because for those of you who haven't seen pictures of me, a picture of me, you may not know, but I'm a middle-aged African-American male, born and raised in Greenville, South Carolina, which for those of you who might be international, that's in the southeastern part of the United States of America, and very well known for racism over the years. Now, I'm not going to give you a history lesson, but what drove me to speak on this topic today is, yet again, I'm currently in Charlotte, North Carolina, a couple states away from me in southeastern United States of America, or close to Brunswick, Georgia. Another black male has been targeted and killed with very questionable cause by citizens. This time not by police, but by citizens, his equal. So a young black man is out jogging in a neighborhood and is accosted, stopped, or tracked and stopped, ultimately shot by a white male. Now, this is exceptionally disturbing to me, although it's somewhat a regular occurrence, not only in Southeast United States of America, but throughout the United States of America. And I would imagine even around the world, where people of color are treated very harshly, very differently, many times killed. And yes, it is a huge problem. So I felt led to speak on this today because, again, self-love is always about speaking your truth. And if I lose listeners over this particular podcast episode, so be it. I understand. I don't think you were really with me to start with, and you really understand what self-love is about. Because self-love is about not only speaking your truth, being 100% authentic in who you are, what affects you, what you believe in, but it's also allowing others to do that very same thing and to be good with them speaking their truth and being who they are. Now, if you don't know the story, you can really quickly look it up on Google. I'll spell his name for you. The young man who is no longer with us, his name is Ahmaud Arbery. Ahmaud as in dog, Arb as in boy, Ery. Ahmaud Arbery. Brunswick, Georgia. If you Google that, then you definitely will pull up the story and you can read it for yourself. So I won't give you any more of the details. Now, this happened in late February of 2020. I'm recording this on May 7th, 2020. And guess what? No one even knew about this story, number one. No one was even charged in this crime, number two. And number three, if it had not been for a leaked video of the murder, there would not be an outcry. There would not be a push to bring the state of Georgia in to investigate. And again, another person of color, another male of color, his murder would just be passed over, pushed aside, never thoroughly investigated, and no one ever brought to justice. And this is, again, I emphasize, 2020. And young people of color are still being murdered under very, very suspicious causes. Again, I don't know the whole story. I don't know the whole details. That's why a full and thorough investigation is required. And also, while people who were involved in this incident should also be jailed while the investigation goes on and the trial and the situation can be brought to, in this case, a grand jury. So, again, the timeline happened on February 23rd, 2020. It wasn't until May 7th, 2020, that the perpetrators of the crime, a father and son duo, were brought in and put into jail under the suspicion, were charged physically and charged with the murder and brought into custody. February 23rd, 2020, May 7th, 2020. And again, this was not until a video of the incident. Keep in mind, these people video recorded the incident. They video recorded the incident. It was passed around from one friend to another friend to another friend. And ultimately, someone with a real conscience leaked the video. And then now we have evidence of actually what happened, which in some instances is contrary to the story that was portrayed when the incident happened. Now, I am going to leave it at that. I think I've said enough for now because I could speak more on this, could speak for a while on this. This is something that's near and dear to me. Again, I am born and raised in southeastern United States of America. And I have not had things as bad as my parents. My parents have not had things as bad as their parents. However, I've been in situations like this growing up in the South. I have one son who's 19 years old, and he and I were talking about this incident last night. And me and my good friends, who are all of my age, had a conversation yesterday about, making sure that we have our concealed weapon permits and being willing and able to carry your guns. And even my young son, who's 19, says, Dad, you should get a gun. And, we had a conversation about it. And as a parent, if you are a parent, you have to be concerned, because if it could happen to Mr. Aubrey and numerous others over the years, it could happen in your life. And so that's was one of my biggest fears, having a young son growing up in the South, is that something like this could happen to him very easily. Very easily. This guy, Ahmaud Arbery, according to the reports, was a known jogger, jogging through a neighborhood when he was followed and accosted by 3 other men who thought he might be the person or the suspected person of some crimes in their neighborhood, some robberies in their neighborhood. They stopped him. Everybody has guns. And everybody's pulled guns. All right. And again, I can find myself getting more and more emotional as I continue to speak on it. So I think I've made my point. But I want to close out, again, bringing this back to the reason why I thought it was so important for me to speak this tonight. Not only because of the incident and how I feel about it. Also, it's about the very first tenet of self-love. You have to be willing to speak your truth regardless of the consequences. And this is my truth. This is part of who I am. This is what I feel. This is where I am in the moment. And so I invite all of you who listen to this podcast to be willing to be who you are in the moment, even if that means that this episode turns you off and you no longer want to listen to it. That's perfectly fine. That's great. That's your choice. That's your prerogative. And I'm very good with that. So be willing to be 100% who you are, speak your truth in each and every moment, and be willing to stand firm on who you are, regardless of the situation, regardless of who you're in front of, regardless of what the repercussions might be down the line, because it's not about that at all. It's totally about being who you are in that very moment and being firm and honest and true and authentic, because that's what this life is about. Being who you are, expressing your feelings, expressing your emotions, expressing your likes and dislikes, what you will do and what you won't do. So be willing to be 100% of who you are in each and every moment. I love you all. I look forward to speaking with you all again very soon. Bye now.
You've been listening to Self-Love is the New Sexy with W. Mark Watts. If you enjoyed today's show, be sure to tell a friend. Also, make sure you never miss an episode by subscribing to our show on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher Radio, or wherever you listen to podcasts.